Go Gators! All right. Hello and welcome. A big Florida Gator welcome to ABA weekend. I'm really happy that you all could come out and have fun tonight. I see a lot of repeats, a lot of repeats. And also welcome to the first time people, the first timers, where are you? Welcome. Oh my gosh, it's a lot of first timers, a lot of first timers. I'm Linda Jackson. I'm the immediate past president for the Alumni Association, Black Alumni Association. I'd like to do a couple of introductions. First of all, our new president, Michael Grant from Tampa, Florida. I'd also like to recognize Paul Robel, who's vice president for, he gets the money here. And where is Jeff Jonason? There's Jeff Jonason. Welcome, Jeff. Jeff is president of the Alumni Association, and you'll hear more from Jeff tomorrow. And if I can also introduce Dr. Lee Patouet, who is the executive director of the Alumni Association. That's right.
Thank you, Linda. It is so good to see you here. Love that, but we're so glad that you're here. It is a great time and to be a Florida Gator, isn't it? You know, the excitement here on campus has been unbelievable. This morning we had 1,500 students standing just outside this building waiting to get a Beat t-shirt, which is part of our Student Alumni Association. And so it is fun to see just a great progress. Let me tell you a couple of things about the university right now. Some of you may have seen the latest issue of the U.S. News and World Report. The University of Florida was ranked 15th among just all public institutions, and that's impressive. Number 15. What's really fascinating, folks, is there's 3,500 colleges and universities in this country. So when you step back and you think about that, it is impressive. What is also impressive is the fact we had 27,000 students apply for 6,400 slots here for the freshman class. Now, many of us could not be accepted into the University of Florida today. Now, it is true that we checked some transcripts, and the ones on this side of the table, I'm just kidding. But it is amazing when you meet these students, and it speaks volumes about the future of the Gator Nation. You know, they are bright, they are articulate, they're civic-minded, they bring so much to the table. What is also exciting is right here at Florida, our Student Alumni Association is the largest in the country. We have 9,500 Student Alumni Association members, and we should be proud because just last week, this group was named as the most outstanding group in the country. So, folks, you know, the future looks bright. It was fun today spending some time with the Black Alumni Board meeting with Michael and company. There's a lot of exciting projects planned, and let me not steal their thunder from my dear friend Michael. You'll be hearing more about those things tomorrow. You know, but every day that our alumni give their time, talent, and treasure, and people talk about the Gator Nation, but it's that heart and soul that really makes a difference. It's you, the alumni, who are the ambassadors, who are helping us in Tallahassee and helping us spread the good word just about the University of Florida. And folks, we cannot do this without you. So we thank you, we welcome you home, and go Gators. Now back to Linda Jackson, my good friend.
Thank you so much, Lee. Thanks. And once again, welcome everyone. I see some surprises here tonight. I'm really happy to see some of my best and dear friends here tonight. Anyways, I'm going to introduce our keynote speaker for tonight, Dr. Stephanie Evans. Dr. Stephanie Evans is Associate Professor in African American Studies and Women's Studies. She has authored 2 books, Black Women in the Ivory Tower, 1850 through 1954, and also author of African Americans and Community Engagement in Higher Education. Dr. Evans is a tenured professor. She's in her 7th year. She teaches Black history and the Jazz Age and mentoring at-risk youth and mentors at-risk youth. Dr. Stephanie Evans.
Thank you. Good evening. Good evening. Well, this is a beautiful sight to see, all of the connection and the love. And I am not an alumni. I'm an ABC Gator, alumni by choice. Is that right, Leland? Right. I have been here for 6 years. This is my 7th year at the University of Florida. And yes, I am a tenured. Yes, indeed. It is just, it's so lovely. It's been wonderful. I am here tonight to talk about you, right? I'm a historian by training, and I was asked to speak in this kind of inaugural talk to the Black Alumni Association. But the truth is, I can't tell you about your history. You have to tell me about your history. Black alumni at the University of Florida have a distinctive and distinguished history. This social history must be added to the public record about the institution. Though I am a scholar who specializes in Black educational and intellectual history, I can't tell the story of the Black Gators in the detail, the richness, the fullness, the pain, the joy, and the sorrow that you can. I can't offer that detail. Currently, the oral history program holdings are over 1,000 voices. The Sam Proctor Oral History Program has over 1,000 voices recorded in interviews talking about the Florida Gators. Only 40 or 50 of those are Black voices. I am here in a thinly veiled effort, because the title of my talk, if you can see this yellow sheet, this is what I'm going to be speaking from this evening. And this is very informal. I was told not to give a formal lecture. They call me Dr. Evil, so I'll not slip into that mode. I'm not going there, right? But this is going to be a very thinly veiled request that you invest not only your money for scholarships, and we need that too, but that you start investing and offering us your voices. So I am a beneficiary of your efforts. I know that in 1969, when the African American Studies program was started, it was because of people who were on this campus who demanded to be represented not only on the campus, in campus space, but who demanded to be represented in the curriculum. So I know that I wouldn't be standing here without the alumni who came before me to create the way. There would be no tenured Gator without the people who are sitting in this room. So I speak tonight to ask you, is Anna Julia Cooper, who is my personal hero, a woman who lived to be 105 and a half, earned her PhD from the Sorbonne in Paris, even though she was born enslaved, and wrote her dissertation at the age of 66 in French, defended in French. And so this is the part of the legacy that I'm following. And Anna Julia Cooper wrote because she said she wanted to add this little voice to the chorus. So I'm asking that you add your voice to the chorus of the story of Black Gators. History in the Black community, in an article John Fleming wrote, "My purpose is to place in perspective the importance of Black history and its dissemination to the Black community. Social history is the recorded collective experience of a group of people over time." These experiences are not just randomly assembled facts about the past, but from the perspective of the community, the history of a people is what they in the present find of value and of relevance to their lives, and what they would like to pass on to future generations. Cultural values are intricately woven into a group's history because it is these values that distinguish one group for another. So I'm here to ask that we collectively think about the social history of what it has meant to come to the University of Florida, because UF stock is rising, right? It is great to be a Florida Gator. Let me tell you, it's really exciting to work here and to see the potential and finally starting to realize that we can reach even a higher potential. But that stock won't rise without the full picture of the story. So social histories are very important, but this is also about family history. I recently got married to the most wonderful, handsomest man in the whole wide world. He's one, Mr. Curtis Bird, who's back there. It's wonderful. We just had our wedding in May, and as we were putting our wedding together, we put together our families. It wasn't Stephanie and Curtis getting married. We put together all of the branches of the Bird family, and the Evans and the Edmonds and the Tillmans family, and we called the names of the ancestors because we were putting our families together. So I see the social history of the University of Florida as very important, but I also see the connection of people. Girl, I haven't seen you for years. Where you been? I didn't even know you were still. You in Florida still? That's a family connection, and that's just as important. I was speaking with Stephanie Pollard, who is an ABA member, organizer, and she was talking about the importance of family history for health. If we're talking about breast cancer, we need to know family history at least 3 generations back. So this is about social history, but also family history, because when you add your voice to this collection, right, at the University of Florida, you will also be telling stories that maybe you didn't think you wanted to tell. And that will enrich your family history as well. So tonight I'm going to speak very, very briefly, just a couple of comments about incorporating history into the institution, and that's what I mean by investing. John Hope Franklin, who just passed away this May, is really the dean of African American history in the academy. This is a man who had to fight his way, like many of you all did on this campus, had to fight his way to be a full professor and a respected professor. And he said that there are many ways that Black history is told. It's not just a story of victimization. It's not just, oh, we were slaves. Oh, my time at UF here was hell. Them people gave me hell, right? That is part of the story, a very important part of the story. But he says there's also a story of contribution and creative resistance. So not only were African Americans enslaved, obviously we came from kings and queens, but we built this country. In many of the same ways, we need to understand how you all built this school. And not just the narrative of victimization, but also the narrative of power. There are some resources that I collected because, again, I can't tell you your history, but what I can do is set the context. So if you look on here, there's a lot of website links that I have gone and collected. The Sam Proctor Oral History Program was founded in 1967, and there's over 4,000 oral histories. Dr. Paul Ortiz, where'd you go? Over here. Where'd you go? Oh, you were walking, okay. Dr. Paul Ortiz is the head of that effort. He just got here, and he's serious about his business. He is taking a regional approach, not just collecting the oral histories here on campus or here in Gainesville, but this was his second year going to Mississippi, the Mississippi Delta, and recording the stories of the civil rights movement there, because oral history is very delicate. If you do not collect these stories, they will vanish. So Sam Proctor Oral History Program has has a need for your voices, but they also have a very rich collection with very keen leadership. The University of Florida Library Special Collections. And as you see here, Aquin Jones, who I'm sure many of you knew because I hear the name over and over, Mr. Joel Buchanan. Thank you for waving. Everybody knows Joel, right? He is really an amazing resource that is institutionalized. So there are stories that he has collected, Aquin Jones, but also the James Haskins collection. How many of you took a class with Professor Haskins? Not very many. He was in the back there. This man was a legend, and I was very fortunate to meet him before he passed at Harry's, right? He always kept his office hours at Harry's. But there are collections that are ongoing, and there are ways to contribute in the names of people who are very important to this institution. And those, Joel and Paul are part of that. Also, I'd like to introduce Faye Harrison, Dr. Faye Harrison, who's the head of African American Studies. My boss. Who's also a part of the collaborations to make sure that Jim Haskins' memory is part of the story. They also recently had, I was unfortunately out of town, celebrating the 50th anniversary of UF's integration. And what came out of that was a recognition of the first. Many of the first we already knew, but there are some people who weren't recognized there, and we didn't even know about. So what that initial celebration, okay, it's been 50 years, great. What that initial celebration allowed was a kind of a formal documenting of what's been, who's been here and when they've been here. But it also spoke volumes to the need to say, oh, well, so-and-so wasn't the first to graduate out of that college. That was so-and-so, right? Oh, that was so-and-so's uncle. They said that so-and-so was the first one, but actually he matriculated. You all have that body of knowledge. Touch a nerve, right? You all have that body of knowledge, and if you don't add your perspectives and your relative stories to this picture, the picture won't be complete. Okay, following to people, Joel Buchanan, Betty Stewart Dowdell, Stuart Fullwood, Florida Bridgewater Alfred, Paul Ortiz, Marna Weston, Vivian Filer. All of these people are institutions of knowledge in and of themselves. But these are people who are actively collecting the stories. So I'm sure you know somebody on this list. So that is a person, a contact person you can start with to start telling your story. Marna Weston, I wanted to point out, is a very interesting character. He gave me a whole list of names: Ron Foreman, Harry Shaw, Jim Scott, Willie Robinson, Tommy Howard, Rosa Williams, Clifford Strong, Roxy Oliver, Pam Bingham, Sam Taylor, Bill Simmons. These are people who he knows that we need to contact. He doesn't know how to contact all of them. So he is a resource who's writing his dissertation on African American agriculture and higher education, but he is a staff member in the oral history program. So there's work going on that can benefit, not just the, sit in the archive, but people are working on this. That's why it's a living history, a living narrative. Okay, finally, before we get to the interactive part, because I want to just give you all a chance to sound off. There are some, we're not going to sound, we're going to sound off to your table. This is not going to be a long presentation. Okay, there are some resources if you look on the back, just 4 books that may be of interest if you love Florida history. The first is African Americans at the University of Florida, Betty Stewart Fullwood's book. It's basically the first step, right? The who's who. Again, it's not capturing every person that ever was at, University of Florida, but I'm sure many of you have already seen this book. I had the privilege of interviewing, when she was 99 years old, Daphne Duval Williams, who was the woman to integrate the College of Education in 1958. And I went down to Orlando and spoke with her, and she was just, she was in assisted living on her own, just as sassy as she wanted to be. And she said, well, I went to University of Florida so that everybody could know. I mean, she was already a mother, she was a teacher. She just said, well, I wanted to go just to show we could go. And when you looked at her nightstand, there were nothing but books. 99 years old, just books stacked all over the floor. She was very, very vivid in her expression, but also continuing to learn, a lifelong learner. And there's the Usler Hall building, I'm in women's studies as well, has a portrait of her that was dedicated by her daughter, Sally Richmond Evans. And it's amazing to be a part of the story. Recently, in trying to get in contact, I wanted to talk to Sally and say, well, how are you? And how are things? You don't want to say, like, how's your mother? But she said, oh, and my mama's doing fine at 103. Still on her, oh, yeah, she gets up, she takes care of herself, she's doing it, yeah. So that's something that, history is not so far back as you think. History is this generation. Multicolored Memories of a Black Southern Girl by Kitty Oliver is a very interesting book because it talks about being a Gator in the 1970s. And when you come to college, particularly as a traditional student, your identity is like all over the place anyway. So you're integrating, a friend of hers went to an HBCU, and so by the time they came back at Thanksgiving, they were totally different. She said she was going from singing, gospel to Otis Redding to Peter, Paul and Mary to Santana, And so there's a whole book by this woman who is still in Florida. I think she's getting her PhD right now. And talking about what it was like to be one of 35 students. She entered in 65, graduated in 69. So there are people who are already telling them their stories. And lastly, Higher Education in the Civil Rights Movement, White Supremacy, Black Southerners, and College Campuses by Peter Wallenstein is a really good book that contextualizes the University of Florida in the region. This was a professor from Virginia Tech who had the same problem of identifying first on campus. Who was the first that graduated from so-and-so? And so he would talk to a couple of people in other Southern campuses. And it's a great book because it talks about the integration of sports. It talks about, University of Florida explicitly, but also the local politics and things that were going on. So that's just a sample of some of the resources that are available to you if you really want to think about what it meant, what your time here meant, and contextualize it with some other narratives that are already published. Those are good resources. Those are good places to start. Now, for just a few minutes, I want to give you an opportunity to share with each other something that happened to you as an alumni, either in the classroom or on campus or in the community. And this is important because too often I've heard, oh, you don't want to hear that story. Oh, you don't know. You don't want to know what happened to me here, right? And part of my reason is starting with John Hope Franklin is because we need the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? Paul Ortiz has said a number of times we don't want it sugar-coated. And Stephanie Pollard said there's something about mayonnaise. When something's distasteful, you just put mayonnaise on it, you cover it up. We don't want the mayonnaise stories. We have enough of those. What we want to know is the full picture. We want to know, like, the stories of health issues. That's one of the recurring themes that I've noticed. That people just got physically ill because they were so stressed, just with the people and professors and grades, and it's stressful anyway. But we also want to know, I was the first president of so-and-so, and nobody even acknowledges that, right? So just take 5 minutes, and 5 minutes means 5 minutes, and we're going to close out with this, right? Take maybe 5, maybe 6 minutes, and the alumni share with the people at your table something that happened on campus, whether positive or not so positive, and just see what it feels like to tell somebody you don't know one of your stories from UF. I'll be back in 5 minutes. Wasn't that fun? That's what we need. We need you to tell your story. So I'm just going to close up. You can continue to tell your stories. I just want to give you a couple of more pieces of information. Tomorrow at the breakfast at the Hilton from 1 to 5, they will be collecting oral histories. They being Paul Ortiz, and Joelle Buchanan has a list that you can sign up for tonight to get on the list. So if you're coming in from out of town, you're just in for the weekend, they have the apparatus tomorrow to record your story. If you're here, put your name on the list. They will come to your house. Paul Ortiz has a class on oral history where someone will come to your house and interview you, or you can come and see the fabulous new Pugh Hall in the center and all of that, okay? So this is what we need from you. We need a connection because there are some amazing students here. I love my students. They hate me, but I love them. But they love me, yeah. But what we need is to make sure that the students who are here now have a much clearer understanding of what it was like to be a Gator before. Okay, so we need your stories. We also need, as Mr. Buchanan will come up and talk about your papers and the papers of your elders, folks who you know who went to the University of Florida, and they have some invaluable pictures from the early, or mid-1900s and things like that. The University of Florida Library Special Collections needs a greater proportion of African American Gator, Black Gator memorabilia so that we can be part of the story. So I thank you for your time. It has been an absolute honor. My contact information, professorevans.com, it's a resource website, but use these websites and please continue to talk to each other and continue to talk to us. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you to Dr. Evans. Please join me in one more round of applause. That was wonderful. Thank you. What was so much fun is it took about 2 seconds to get this group engaged, right? To start to sharing the stories. I learned a lot of stuff about these two right over here. So if you want to find out some neat things, come see me. But we're so glad that you're here. We'll see you tomorrow for the champagne brunch at 9:30 to Hilton. And relax and enjoy yourself, and we'll see you tomorrow on Go Gators. Thank you.
How are you doing? So nice to see you.
I know. Be them all.
Hello. I'm Joel Buchanan, and I was on campus in the late 60s and received my degree from the University of Florida in the year 1971. And prior to that, I had gone to a school here, the only school that would accept Negroes, and they only would take 3 of us at one time, 2 boys and 1 girl. So I attended class by myself, but I was to prove to them that, yes, because my skin was dark, I could learn, comprehend, and finish the institution. I'm here at the library on campus, special collection, and there is no history of any person in this room a part of the archives on campus. And we hope to change that. And the way we're going to change that is that we need you to give us how to contact you. Because before the end of this year, I hope to convince the dean that we need to begin to put our history there. It's not important whether it is positive We want to know the experience that you had being here on campus and when you were here. So over on this table, we have a book that we would like to have how to contact you and get in touch with you. But if you come over and look, we have the collection of Aquin Jones, who came to Gainesville in the year 1919. And 1921, the school opened, and the first Negro class in this state to get a high school diploma was in 1925, and there were only 8 students. And from that, the school been accredited, and it still exists today. But if we don't put our history there, it's not there. So we need to have how to contact you. And I assure you, we will contact you, and we want to begin to collect your history on the experience that you had being here at the University of Florida. And we have some handout for you as well. And this is Alicia, who's a part of the university, what?
Nothing, I don't do anything. No, I'm teasing.
My name is Alicia Antone. I'm the Director of Development for the University Libraries. And I have the wonderful charge as well as privilege to work with Mr. Buchanan. And as anyone who knows him, he is truly a gentleman, and we are grateful for what he endured to allow us to be where we are at today. Many of you don't know that he is the first African American to integrate the schools here in Gainesville. And he was sharing about his experience there at the table, which many of you, your mouths literally dropped. We don't know what that's like to go to school and have federal police surrounding you every day, and like he mentioned, isolated, where no one would talk to you, not even the teachers. They wouldn't even call your name when it was time for roll call. So literally, you were invisible to them. It's time to change that. So we're asking for your help. Matter of fact, we're pleading for your help. There are only 2 of us in terms of a people of color in higher education in the libraries. First ever Director of Development that is a person of color, which speaks volumes in the direction that our dean is thinking. However, we still need your help in telling your story. So I'm asking you if you would just take a minute, even if you don't have time to fill out that sheet, if you would just take our business card and we can have you contact us or email us. We are very interested as a depository to have those stories for future generations who may be looking or researching or trying to find out what it was like to be Black in a white institution and what that experience was like over a transition or a period of time. It's very important for us to do that. Thank you very much for this opportunity. We look forward to seeing you and speaking with you more. Have a wonderful weekend, and go Gators.
Okay.